Hello friends, I'm happy to see you guys today. We are going live with Dr. Susan Clinton. I'm so excited, so we're going to get connected here and she'll be joining us shortly. We are talking about the voice and pelvic floor and the connection. So she is an amazing therapist and an international lecturer. She teaches courses all over the world on pelvic floor and all the connections here. Okay, so we're going to get started. Just waiting for that connection. I turned off commenting because we're going to post this on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is My Pelvic Floor Muscles. So I've sent you the invitation, Susan. But I'm going to send it again. So you should see like a little red plus or something like that and just click on it. Okay, so I'm going to send you the invitation. Okay. Thank you guys that are still hanging in there. Just give us a minute and we will have everything connected. Okay, I'm adding you, Susan. Okay. I see, I see that you're messaging me and you can't get on. I'm adding you now. So there should be a little at the bottom of your live screen there should be like two little faces and yes.
I'm sorry. This is my first time with Instagram.
No, it's fine. And I think I could probably do a better job with my instructions too. So I'd love for you to give me some feedback on that. Thank you so much for joining us, Susan.
Glad to be here.
Amazing.
Glad to be here.
And amazing to meet you in person. So I'm Jeanice Mitchell, and I'm so impressed with your work. So I'm really excited about you joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and it's very nice to meet you in person as well.
And then hopefully someday we actually get to meet in person.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be able to connect people with their pelvic floor muscles and their pelvic health. You know, it's what we've been doing for a long time, but then creating resources that people can understand. So I love what you've done. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your private practice, and we'd love to hear a little bit of your background before we get started.
Sure. I've been a physical therapist longer than I've done anything else in my life at this point in my career. I started off actually in acute care and neuro. And my background is a huge neurological background, working with patients with all kinds of brain injuries. So I came at the ortho world from kind of a different approach. And so I've always kind of looked at people in a systems approach and worked that way. I opened my private practice with my partner, Rebecca Meehan. We opened 5.5 years ago.
Good.
And I do a lot of post-professional education as well. So I'm on the road teaching and presenting at conferences, as well as hanging out in the clinic and working through things and working with people and doing all of that. And I also am a inaugural board member for the Global Women's Health Initiative Foundation. So we're working on boosting PT education across the globe.
Good.
So women with pelvic floor issues anywhere can get the care that they need.
Yes. So you guys are really spearheading the way and helping to get therapists trained that are in other countries and be able to go back to their countries and be able to even potentially train other therapists there and treat patients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We believe in a sustainable model, which is really working within the group that's already in place, already present. And getting their educational pieces up so that they're able to give the care that they want to give and have the education they want. So there's two models. They can either come to the States and we can help them with courses here, or we can send PTs there in an educational model as well.
Okay.
to work with people. Mm-hmm.
Fabulous, fabulous. Where can people find more information about the GWHI?
So come to our website, www.gwhi.org.
Okay. Good.
Sign up and get our newsletter, and you'll see all the good things that we have going on right now.
Okay, and I'll post a link in the story, but if you're watching this after the fact, the story will be long gone. So, okay, so let's just jump in then. How does the voice work with the pelvic floor? What is the connection?
So the connection is actually through the pressure system, which most people have always thought about the pressure system, our internal core, being from the diaphragm, the respiratory diaphragm, to the pelvic floor. And I think most everybody's familiar with that. The diaphragm moves up and down, the pelvic floor goes with it, and we have that strong connection. But what I think people forget about is that there's also the connection above the diaphragm into the other diaphragm up here, which is the glottis and the epiglottis. And so the glottis is the hole that sits on top of your trachea, and the epiglottis is the flap that comes down and covers it. So when you swallow, food goes to the back and down your esophagus and not into your lungs. Okay. But also inside of the hole of the glottis are the vocal folds, which look like this. They go back and forth like a triangle that's opening and closing. And the epiglottis comes over like a flap and regulates air, and that the wiggling of the vocal folds and the epiglottis gives us our voice.
Okay, beautiful.
And so, because it has to work intimately with the diaphragm, because the diaphragm moves the air through the glottis and wiggles the vocal folds and all the other little muscle connections there, it also has a very close association with the pelvic floor. And neurologically, it has a strong association with the pelvic floor because for all of us, our voice is how we communicate with our tribe. So there's safety in communication with your tribe. Your chances of surviving outside of your tribe were never as high as they were inside your tribe. Warning each other for threat. And, so the voice is intimately connected. And you can always just think about listening to a lot of people in your life, and you can tell when people are sad. You don't even have to see their face. You can hear it. You can tell when they're sad. You can tell when they're upset. You can tell when they're under threat. You can tell when they're happy. You can tell when they're really relaxed. You can hear that in the voice, and the pelvic floor actually moves up and down as the vocal folds come in and go out. So as we drop our pitch, and everyone can try this. It's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's just go ahead and just make a hum. And you just feel that. Now, drop it down a bit.
I felt it lower.
Yeah, so your throat opens, the vocal folds come apart and wiggle, and the pelvic diaphragm, the pelvic floor muscles actually drop down and eccentrically load to control that phonation. So they're not going to come up, because if they come up, this is what happens. And you'll feel your pelvic floor come right on with it.
Right. That's amazing.
So when people have that really high-pitched, squealing, scream kind of voice that's going on, you can only imagine what their pelvic floor is doing. It's just, it's over-recruiting and doing its thing because that's what it does.
Yeah,
that's how the connection is neurologically.
The automatic connection and response.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So then why do people leak when they yell?
That's a big question I always get, because most people will sit there and tell me, I'm really good until I sneeze, I cough, or I yell at my kids. So why are we yelling at our kids? First of all, keep that in mind, because they're doing something that they're not supposed to do. And oftentimes they're doing something that could be dangerous. So that's a normal thing that people need to be able to do that. That's normal. That's a normal part of parenting.
We're not saying don't yell at all.
Right, exactly. And let something bad happen. No, you have to, so they'll yell and they'll leak. And, the difference is that if they haven't trained their voice and their pelvic floor up enough to really be able to handle the forces of a yell. So you can make a really loud voice and it can be pretty shallow because it doesn't have the depth of pulling the whole pelvic floor in, or you can use the whole body to really kind of lift from the pelvic floor out to drive that exhalation out to give you that really strong pointed yell that goes down the road.
Okay.
And it's a method that actors use a lot to project their voice to the back of the auditorium.
To give them depth.
The theater. Mm-hmm.
So the pelvic floor should automatically be engaging with that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so there's ways to kind of get it to automate. And one of the things that you can do, and I know a lot of people, because I know that you all talk about this a lot, talk about breath in your pelvic floor. And a nice deep breath in, the pelvic floor, descends and eccentrically loads for all of us PT people. Basically what it means is that the muscle gets long. And it should get long because it goes down and it goes up. And it's like a trampoline, just like the respiratory diaphragm is.
Yes.
And so we need to kind of train that in there. And by adding the voice on top of it, we can actually hear the modulations and the changing. So the voice becomes a biofeedback piece of equipment for us. So if we want somebody who's having pelvic pain to feel better, we can actually help them drop their voice quality a little, their voice pitch a little bit, and change the rate, and just really kind of get it to where it's very comfortable. Some of you who did the real low pitch, it may have felt a little bit gravelly to you. And that's because that system isn't used to coming down that low. And so you can train that system to come low, you can train that system to go high. And the voice can be one of the pieces. So you can start with doing things like change the way that you talk. Did anybody ever see the movie When Harry Met Sally? So for some of you are too young, I'm sorry. But there's this whole scene in the movie where they go, for the next 3 hours, we're going to talk like this. And they do this whole thing where they're talking in this funny voice. But there's actually something to that, because that helps develop variability through the system, the entire pressure system. So the easiest way for moms and grandmoms and, men too, to kind of do it is to read out loud.
Good.
Read out loud. Listen to yourself as you read. Read out loud and do the voices. Do the, the little bitty fairies and the big bad wolf. And get that whole system going, so that you have that great variability. I'm kind of a believer that if you can train your voice along with this pressure system, that it not only makes the pelvic floor healthier, but it also keeps your voice healthier for life. That I don't think voice changes should necessarily be a normal change in life. To me, it's a when we get that older, gravelly voice, it's a system that's fallen into some compression.
So we can actually be training ourselves as we're doing our regular life. Like if we're reading a bedtime story, that's a great time, right? To do the different
perfect
voices.
Time.
Mm-hmm.
Sing the music. Nothing's more tribal than your jams. So whatever your jams are, turn them on. Everybody's been listening to the kids' music for a while. Turn your own music on and sing out loud. And if you're shy, sing in the shower.
Yeah. Or in the car when you're by yourself.
Exactly.
Good.
So those can be fun things to do. Talking in different pitches and playing up and down can be fantastic. And then you can actually add that into movement. So if you're going to pick up your child and the car seat, or you're going to go pick up a 50-pound bag of dog food, or whatever it is that's going on in your life, rather than holding your breath, use a little bit of voice punch with it to go with it, so that you can really develop that kind of thing, rather than like.
And then air is flowing.
Right. Nice. So this is the thing. If you're worried about, or if somebody told you you're breath holding too much, or you want to monitor if you are, then open up your mouth and talk as you go to stand up from a chair, and you'll hear the buccal point. You may go to stand up, so that the voice will give you that kind of information, which is really very cool. Or if you're listening to something, you can actually, like if you're in the gym and you're working out and you're kind of climbing on some of your sets and reps as far as, a deep squat or a deadlift, use your voice, talk out loud while you're working, because you'll hear where in that cycle you're running into problems. The problem is, so if it's not a problem, the issue is that if you hold your breath, you cannot talk.
Right. There's no air flowing.
Exactly. So it's a perfect way to find where you feel like your system needs to overwork to get there. And if you find that you can't even do that lift without holding your breath, that's your 1 rep max. You need to back down and train a little lower and get yourself stronger so that that 1 rep max can start to change, because we really should be holding our breath when we are doing that big 1 rep max.
Okay.
That's a protective mechanism for the system. So for many of you, it may be lifting up the couch to run the sweeper underneath. You may have to hold your breath to do that, you know, because you may not do that activity enough to ever really need to train that hard for it. If you want to be able to run the sweeper in 5 houses, that's your occupation, then we need to get you up and going with that so that so you're trained up to that activity.
Good. So then what tips would you give to somebody that's wanting to increase the amount of weight that they're lifting, their lifting performance?
So first of all, you can't push through symptoms. And I think everybody knows that. It's not a matter that, you know, if we can sit there and say, okay, if you have pressure in your pelvic floor or you're leaking with lifting, you know, that's no good for your pelvic floor. People are interested in their performance. And here's the deal. If you keep pushing through symptoms, you're not working with the whole team. You're only working with part of the team, and your performance isn't likely going to improve as good as it would if you have the whole team on board. So using your breath and voice can really help you increase your performance as long as you're not pushing through the symptoms of that heaviness in the pelvis or actually flat out
leaking or pain. Good.
So, but that can help, because that can help. So you can be in a low squat with your pelvic floor lengthened, and you can still use your voice to amplify that work of the pelvic floor as you come up and out of that squat into the standing position. So you can even start, you can play around with it, because there's no one right or wrong way to go, but you can start with like and kind of do something fun like that, or they can make a whoop sound, or
and if you think about the pelvic floor there, like with the change in the pitch, and so we're starting from low to high, right? And so we're wanting to engage and bring that pelvic floor up as we're lifting. So everything is going up. Our body's going up, our pelvic floor is going up, and our pitch is going up. That's such an amazing connection. I love that. Love it. Good.
So you have to go to one of those gyms where everybody can be loud and clangy. No, it's like, I think the world is changing. We kind of got, we were like so into, warm leg warmers and looking right at the gym and doing this stuff. And, now I think everybody wants to be in the gym where they can all like throw weights around and grunt and moan and scream and do all of that. And there's a reason that those weightlifters do it. And if you watch Olympic weightlifters, what do they do when they get to that final one? There's that, as they do it. So it's like, boom, boom, boom.
I love it. That's such a great tip. I love that. And it's such a great correlation there. Thank you for making that connection. Okay, so next question. I don't sing well. How else can I exercise my voice and pelvic floor connection? Okay, so start with talking and get your talking clearer. And spend time with it, and spend time playing around with postures so that you can, sit up tall and see how you're talking changes. I'm sitting taller as we're talking.
Versus sitting down low and see how your talking changes. There are, I'm not a big believer that there's a good posture or a bad posture. There's a time where we need to sit low and slump. There's a time when we need to sit up tall and have a forward head. We should be able to do all of those postures. But there's also postures that enhance performance, and we do know that. So I'm not going to get the best breath in if I'm slumping down. I'm going to get a much better, deeper breath in if I'm just a bit more upright. And so play with posturing, play with it in standing, and play with it in sitting. And talk low, talk high, and just pay attention and really just get your voice as clear as you can get it. Good. And figure out how breathy it is. If it's breathy, you need to work on some exhalation type work. Okay. Not more inhalation, more exhalation. You need to be able to control that exhalation out better, because that's what singing is. Singing is controlled exhalation, with all the various pieces that go on. And some people, quite frankly, just have a better instrument than others. But that doesn't mean that others can't sing. They just may not be Julie Andrews. Or Megan Burnham,
Yeah. So, and we can make a noise, even if it's not necessarily considered singing. So, and they can play with the pitch there too.
Yes, absolutely. Variance, I think, is king. So the more we can vary the up and down part, the better. That's why I say turn on your jams and sing out loud. You know, sing to girl bands, sing to boy bands, you know, because the pitches are all going to be a little bit different. And it's good to play around with that. But the biggest thing I think for people to pay attention to is not the inhale, it's the exhale. Because we're always going to inhale as long as we're living. We're hardwired to inhale. So the control of exhale is what we can really train. And so, you know, there's all kinds of different breath work you can do. You can inhale for 2 counts, exhale for 4 till that gets comfortable.
Practice. Inhale
for 3, exhale for 6, inhale for 4, exhale for 8. You can, you know, there's all the yoga breathing, all of the different ones, but every single one of them are training exhale. So if you think about all of the different ones that they do, the rapid breathing.
There's a lot of different philosophies.
Mm-hmm. But every single one of them are training exhale. And so that's the biggest part to get. And I think I was talking with Beth Learn from Fit to Be Studio out in Oregon, and she's actually done some research on COPD. And it's not, you know, and the research in the beginning was working on getting more inhale. And now it's like, no, they're already too inhaled. Their diaphragms are too flat. We need to teach everything to come up, you know, to be the exhale part, to lift, to come up, to work. And if you think about anybody with any kind of lung problem, they oftentimes have associated pelvic floor problems as well.
Wow.
So it's kind of cool. So yeah, so training exhale is the first step. Talking and getting your talking as regular as possible, and then starting to just sing. And you can always work, if you're like super interested in being a better vocalist, then after you have those mechanics down, get with a vocal coach. I can teach people how to rotate and move. Then I send them to the golf pro to learn how to do the technique of golf. I can get their body moving in the right direction and get their balance back. But it's the golf pro who's going to teach them how to hit the ball right.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Excellent. Okay, so another question. If I'm having trouble with a specific movement, shouldn't I be holding my breath?
That's a great question. And the answer is, it depends. Because here's the thing. We should, as humans, be able to do all kinds of movements against gravity, on and off the floor, in and out of beds, on and off of chairs, in and out of cars, up and down stairs, without having to regulate our pressure system. We should be strong.
It automatically does it.
Right. We should be there. Now, maybe you have a baby and your system is offline, and you find yourself holding your breath to do certain things. Well, you're going to in the beginning, you're going to lift your baby up. This is the thing that drives me crazy about people saying, don't do this and don't do that. It's like, look, that child is crying. They're picking the child up. I don't care what you say. What we need to do is teach them how to cope with it a little bit better. Yeah. So you may, in those instances, immediate postpartum, have to do some breath holding because everything's gone off.
That gives you some stability.
Right. But what we don't want is, as those tissues and muscles and neurology comes back online, is to not use that old strategy. So the breath holding can be a strategy to get you through a difficult moment, but it shouldn't be one that you want to rely on for everything. And that's what ends up happening, is once we start breath holding and using our diaphragm, our respiratory diaphragm, like a postural control muscle rather than a breathing muscle, it tends to take over. And it becomes, something the brain really winds into a nice little pattern, and it stays with people for a long time. And they're not even aware of how much breath holding they're doing. And that's the beauty of where to bring the voice in, because then it's like you can really hear what's happening.
So for those people out there that have never thought about the voice and the pelvic floor connection and even possibly breathing, what would you say to them? We want you to think about, as you're going through your daily activities, are you holding your breath?
Right.
I mean,
and a lot of people aren't aware. So, and it's hard to be aware of breath holding because we're not set up in our brain to think about it. Yeah.
I got to get that stroller in the car.
That's right. That's an old brain activity. It's going to keep us going so we can get the stroller in the car and grab the 3 kids so they don't get run over. Or make it across the street, with my groceries and my book and talking on the phone with somebody. We have that unique ability as humans to do that. So oftentimes we're not as aware of our breath. So just talk out loud and pay attention because you'll hear your voice. And I think that's the best place to kind of pull it is in the beginning when you're doing these things that you're having pain or you're leaking or something's happening. Start talking through that activity and see if you can't figure out where you're having trouble And then you kind of start pulling the dots together a little bit more.
Yeah. So, and it wouldn't even necessarily have to be words, like just ooh, like a noise.
Humming?
Any kind of thing that has that air exchange.
Yep, humming is great because people outdoors and a lot of things will tend to like, hum to themselves a little bit quieter than they will be having a conversation. Everybody looking at them like, who are they talking to?
Yeah. Exactly. Good. Okay, so I only leak when I cough or sneeze. Is there anything I can do beyond cables?
Yes. Number one, do not hold back your sneeze.
Don't
do it. Don't hold it, because as soon as you do, where do the pressures go?
Down.
Yeah, exactly. The reason that we sneeze or cough is to clear the airway. Number one primary reason that we do that is to clear the airway, to get the irritants out and to clear the airway. So if we cut off our sneezes and our coughs or drop down, so you can think about how you cough. We do it for a reason in our society because we don't want to cough all over each other. So what do? We like drop down in our body,
retract,
and then pull down and cough this way, and all the pressures are going down. Up, let your head come forward, cover. You can still be lovely and take care of those around you. But you need to get in a position where things can come out.
Coming out. So that's our goal. Not directing the force down.
Right.
Up and out.
Yes. And with your sneezes, let them rip.
Okay.
Cover again. But just sneeze out loud. And I'm telling you, as soon as you stop doing that, you're going to start to see a difference in your continence with that.
Interesting.
It starts making, because it's just what we do. We're changing the posture. We're going into the primal neurology. We're opening the system up top so that the pressures come up and out. And, the final thing is that when we do all of those things, we put our pelvic floor in a different position that may help it recruit more adequately for that particular performance.
Good. So in terms of the squeeze and sneeze, it's still okay to do that. Yeah, that's another strategy that you can use to help be continent with. But
don't hold back your sneeze.
Make sure you are.
Then now, what's going to happen, right? Now it's going to go down, and someone's going to win.
Yeah,
and it's probably the pressure coming down. So then you're sneezing against this huge pressure, coming from underneath, and there's nowhere for it to go. So it's not going to really. That's why squeezing and sneezing doesn't help if you hold your sneeze back.
Because it reverses it.
Right.
Good. Okay, I have pain with inserting tampons and intercourse. How can the breath voice help with this?
Sure. Lower your pitch. Lower down. Talk quieter. Breathe easier.
It opens things up.
And, just kind of just do that, even if it's kind of a low humming. There's a reason that people purr and make noises to each other when they're together in an intimate situation. Very parasympathetic.
So great.
It's opposite of the warrior. The warrior is loud and hard and forward head and let's go. And
this is murmuring.
Right. And now we're in the position where we want to do some self-care, and we want to be with our person intimately. So the voice changes. So go with that. Use that as intercourse begins to happen.
Good.
You need to do your desensitization stuff and all the other things that you're doing, but the voice can be just such a wonderful adjunct to that.
Nice.
And if you're panicking about putting a tampon in, just sit, relax, breathe, but add that kind of low to it and
see what happens.
Make that easier, yeah. See if you can make insertion easier that way.
I like it. Okay, tell me, we have one more question here, and then we have a few questions from the audience. How are you doing on time?
I'm good.
Okay, so the next question, why is walking, running while talking beneficial?
Because we know we're not holding our breath.
And air movement happening. Good.
Exactly. I mean, I know that sounds so simple, but it's simple as that.
Yes.
Sometimes these foundational pieces are the pieces that we miss, that we blow right past.
Yes.
It's like little simple foundational pieces that can make all of the changes in the other stuff that you're doing.
I love it. Okay. So what impact does a closed glottis have on pelvic organ prolapse? So the glottis, that's that canal basically, right?
Mm-hmm. So if you're squeezing off your glottis in your voice a lot, that means that your diaphragm is also working hard. You know, it's getting shut down, so it's not doing its normal up and down thing. So the dynamics of the pressure system changes, and that can put increased pressure into the abdominal cavity. And when we carry that around all the time, that increases the pressure that the pelvic floor has to, in the organs, have to push up and hold again. So you can have very strong pelvic floor muscles that have fascial connections that have weakened for whatever reason. Could be hormonal, could be, you know, there's 1,000 reasons that you can have weakened fascia, you know. And so, you know, if you walk around with a closed glottis, it's kind of like breath holding all the time. And it increases the intra-abdominal pressure. Now, intra-abdominal pressure isn't a bad thing, and we need it. And we need it when we have to use it. But if we're having it happen all day long, every day, all the time, then that's where we run into trouble. And that's why I would say I would really want somebody with pelvic organ prolapse to really be a little more cognizant of not holding their breath quite as much, or why are they? Mm-hmm. What can we change? What strategies can we change so that they can feel, you know, and some of it may be feel or threat that, oh, this is a bad thing and something's going to happen, and that closes everything up. So sometimes just helping people understand how the system works too can also change that whole breath holding.
Yeah, I love your explanation there. This is so simple but very clear. It makes a lot of sense. So should the glottis be closed or open during bowel movements, and then also labor?
The glottis should not be closed during bowel movements. Valsalva, seated Valsalva is the highest intra-abdominal pressure we have, and that's the latest research from 2017, 2018 from Coleman and from Sue out of Salt Lake City. The sitting Valsalva is the worst. So,
and then you have, if you're sitting on a toilet, then you have that exposed pelvic floor, basically. They're in a very vulnerable position, no support from below.
Right, and it's supposed to do that. It needs to descend and open in order for us to have a bowel movement. So there's many ways to increase the intra-abdominal pressure without cutting off our breath and turning red in our face, and, you know, just trying to push that out. And you can do it in like little small, you know, kinds of things. You can blow your nose while you're on the commode. You can pretend like you're blowing through like a horn.
Okay. Good.
Change postures, but don't close this off.
Good. And then labor.
Labor's an interesting thing, because again, here comes the answer about how it depends. You know, and it really is going to depend on what's actually happening in the moment. So I would have to say that in second stage labor, you know, where
things are happening,
the most active and things are going, the more that you can keep yourself as relaxed as possible, the better. But when it comes to actual delivery, I'm going to say it depends, because you know, they're going to, right at that moment, it's going to depend on where the baby is. It's going to depend upon how wide the opening is. What force needs to come through, what's happening with the mom, you know, what's happening with the baby, all of that. So from what I understand of the literature, because I am not a doula, so I don't spend a lot of time with people in the active, you know, labor and delivery part. I see them early and I see them late, you know, later, but I have people I refer them to for this part. My understanding is that the length of second stage labor and what's going on in second stage labor is more important than probably anything else, because that's where most of the stuff and processes are happening. So the best you could do there is talk, sing, move, grunt, growl, all the kinds of noises that you need to make,
that we already are.
Squeeze your significant other's hand off, you know, but don't close down.
Just breathe at the same time.
You know, because you're going through those pretty intense, you know, labor pains, and so we don't really want you to hold your breath and bear into it. You know, whatever you can do to mediate that.
We're not trying to get purple faces. Good. Okay, is there a way that people can know if their glottis is closed or open? Can you feel it in your throat? Does it feel tight? Or can you, yeah, any tips for someone that might not be sure?
Okay, so how does your voice sound? That would be my answer. If your voice is tight and squeaky and growly,
there's not very much air happening.
Right. Does it feel strangulated? Does it sound strangulated?
That is.
Or is it
so
very breathy,
good.
low, and gravelly? And then you're kind of thinking that maybe it's too open. Pelvic floor is not as great, giving you a great bunch of oomph to the system, or your spine and your back and your trunk is like not as as you want it to be.
Excellent. Okay, 3 more questions here. In singing, you hold the abdominal cavity out while exhaling. This seems contrary to pelvic floor breathing.
Depends on who the person is and how they were trained.
Yeah.
So,
because there's different techniques out there.
There is. And without getting controversial, I can tell you that I've worked with a lot of people that are singers, and by changing that particular strategy has improved their performance. So I'm not going to.
We're not saying one way is right, one way is wrong, but you can say that by changing some technique, it has improved their performance.
Right.
Good.
So driving the exhalation up through the glottis seems to be a really good strategy. It's the same with weightlifting. People are also taught to blow their bellies out against the weight belt, and I have found that I've been able to change their strategies by actually bringing and automating the system with the exhale and the voice and everything coming in. And, and the belt is there to help protect too. But instead of pushing out against the belt, bringing everything in and coming, in a different strategy has also improved their performance. So
good. Okay. Second to last question, how can I raise my voice when trying to get my kids' attention without so much pelvic floor pressure? Any suggestions? Practice in advance?
Well, yeah, exactly. Train yell. People train to yodel. Yodel is nothing but, that yodeling was created to communicate across, the valleys and the mountains out there. Yes. So, you can train that. There are going to be times when your pelvic floor has to work hard. And that's one of them. With a sneeze, it needs to work hard. With a provoked cough, it needs to work hard. So there's a time and a place to really train that higher level pelvic floor oomph. But do we need to train everyday pelvic floor muscles to be that way all the time? No.
Yeah.
So your training can consist of, just doing the up and down work and the stuff, but you also have to load it. And so I think one of the best ways to train the pelvic floor is to get it loading. So, do all of those movements, but then start loading them. Get the kettlebells out, get the weights out, put yourself in harder positions in different positions, and bring your voice on. Make sure you're not breath holding, and start loading, in different positions, especially the ones where the pelvic floor is long. Can be quite helpful.
Great. Okay, and then can yelling or raising your voice for 2+ hours a day be detrimental to an existing prolapse? So I like a fitness instructor or someone that's their job. They're engaging other people and their voice is up and high and they've got to project for a long period of time.
Right, and I understand that. I understand the thoughts about a job, where you are in a loud environment, you have to work that hard. I teach weekend courses, and I know how exhausting that can be to the voice. Yeah. And I'm good unless I've been sick, and it takes a while for me to get everything back on board again with that. One of the best techniques to do, and first of all, it's not detrimental if you're trained up for it.
Okay.
To answer the question, it's not detrimental if you're trained up for it. If you're yelling and all the pressures are going down, or you're blowing your belly out, then it may be a bit of a problem or a strategy that's not going to be sustainable for long. So
if you're symptomatic with it.
Yes, right? But it's doable. It certainly is doable, but like anything else, train up for it. So my suggestion is wear a microphone so you don't have to talk so loud. And you can still be heard, and you can still have all your exuberance and everything going on. Just put a mic on. They're cheap and easy to find. And spend time, just maybe start the class for 30 minutes without the mic. And then as you start to feel the fatigue, click it on.
Good.
You know,
So
and
break it up.
yeah, so that you can actually kind of begin to train working without one. But, you know, if you're having problems, definitely get one because it can be helpful. But the short answer is if your pelvic floor is trained up, it shouldn't be detrimental.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you would like to share with anybody joining us today about the pelvic floor and breath? Any tips, any words of wisdom? You've given us some amazing, amazing content here today.
Great. No, I think the biggest thing is to remember that your pelvic floor is part of a system. It doesn't exist in isolation, and it shouldn't be treated in isolation. It is a muscle. It's a diaphragm muscle. It's no different than any other muscle we have in our body, and it's going to work as a team. It doesn't work by itself. And the other thing to remember is that when you have a rough patch of time, like you get sick, your pelvic floor isn't well either.
Yeah,
so,
lower your expectations.
And I hear that a lot. Like people think, well, you know, then I got sick and everything is bad. And it's like, but how does your shoulders feel? How does your back feel? How do you
are you still achy all over? Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, you know, it's part of the system. And the biggest drivers into the system is your breath and your voice and, you know, the movement system and being able to really pull those things together. And, you know, not walk around with your pelvic floor held really tight.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. It's supposed to move.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any resources that you would recommend for people that may want to learn more, reading or a website or any other additional resources?
So, yeah, there's not a lot on the voice and the pelvic floor out there other than Julie Wiebe and I have an online course that anyone can take.
Okay.
And it'll give you talk about the neurophysiological underpinnings and learning more about it. And you can get to that by emailing me, and I can send you the link for that. Okay. And we have it online on her website. We also have it online at Embody Academy out of Canada. So,
can you spell that? Can you spell one of the websites?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Julie Wiebe is Julie, Juliewiebe, and Embodia is Embodia Academy. And you just Google Embodia Academy and put me in as instructor. You'll see all my online stuff.
So and fitness instructors, you don't have to be a therapist to take those courses.
No, you can sign in and look at there's a lot of information on those. And then we have, you know, we've got some, we're filming and doing some resources now for my stuff, but you can also find my online courses through my website, which is www.embody-pt.com.
Okay. Good. And then you're on Instagram, so it's sclintonpt on Instagram. So if you can't find anything at those websites or you missed it, you can always direct message you. And I know you're a very busy lady and you're teaching everywhere and you have so many things going on. And I'm just really honored that you spent so much of your time and shared your knowledge with us today. So this is going to be able to impact a lot of people. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. This will be recorded, and we'll put it on our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is My Pelvic Floor Muscles, no spaces. So have a great day, and I look forward to meeting you someday in person.
Yes, I'll see you at CSM.
Yes, I'll see you there. Good. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.